Okay, and I'm excited to be back. I haven't recorded an episode for a while, but with a new episode of the podcast for photographers for people and planet. And with this podcast, you know that I like to find different areas, different themes around being a sustainable, being an ethical business. And so today I am going to talk to a wonderful, wonderful lady from Northern Ireland about workshops and how they can maybe embrace ethics and sustainability. So I'm excited to have Lauren with me today. Lauren, hi, and can you give me a quick intro?
Hi, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Lauren. I am a photographer who specializes in weddings and elopements, but particularly elopements here on the Causeway Coast of Northern Ireland. So I actually live right on this iconic coastline with locations like Giant's Causeway, Dunluce Castle. We are spoiled for choice, and I'm very lucky that I've grown up here and I live here. So I have been in the wedding industry 7, 8, maybe nearly years now, which I think you get past year one and it just starts to fly in, doesn't it? I still feel like a newbie though, but I started specializing in elopements right near the start of my career because I saw a real gap for it. And over the last few years, then, even despite COVID, we've seen a real surge in elopements. So I now also plan elopements for couples traveling to Northern Ireland, and I photograph as well. So I have a good team. And a few years ago, I started my workshop, Capture Love, and I specialize in these small intimate retreats for photographers here in Northern Ireland as well. So I do a little bit of everything, is what I would say. I am one of those people that does a lot of different things, wears a lot of different hats, but I absolutely love it. I love our industry, and I love where I live. So I've been so lucky to be able to combine both of those passions into an incredible business that I just absolutely love.
Awesome. So before we start talking about the workshop specifically,
Hmm.
because the podcast and the work that I do with photographers for people and planet is all around sustainability, ethics, I'd love to know, because this is different for every person, what sustainability means to you.
Mm. For me, I think sustainability has been something that I've been very passionate about right from the get go. For me, sustainability is all about your core values and staying true to your core values. I think if you can really go deep into yourself and find out what aligns with you and stay true to that, that leads to a sustainable business right across the board, from everything to longevity in your business. Like, you can actually sustain something if it is aligned with you. When you're following a model or you're following someone else's plan, that is not sustainable. I think it's why we see so many photographers crash out of the industry, because they aren't living a sustainable life. They're going 100 miles an hour. For me, that's what sustainable is. It's staying true and finding balance and finding peace in what I'm doing, and knowing that everything I do in my business is aligned with my core values. For me, those core values um are really about equality. That's something I'm very passionate about, especially being here in Northern Ireland. We have a huge um undercurrent of we have a lack of diversity in our industry, particularly here in this country. So that was something right from the get go in my business that I spotted and was really keen to try to change. And I think that's the only way any industry grows, is if we spot the shortfalls and we try to do something about them. Um, and then, for obviously living on this coastline, sustainability for me is about the planet that we live in, and making sure that every move I make in my business is allows me to still be shooting in 15 years. Like, ultimately, that's the goal. I want this industry to still be here in 15 years. I want to be able to still run my business in 15 years. And I want other people to still be able to shoot and have an incredible experience here in 15 years. And yeah, I think that's one of my biggest driving factors at the moment, especially where I live, because it is experiencing such a surge in popularity, a very big surge in popularity here in Northern Ireland. In Ireland, but especially here in Northern Ireland on the Causeway Coast, we are experiencing a huge surge in popularity, which is wonderful to see, but it comes at a cost. And it's something I'm just really passionate about outlining um, and when it comes to sustainability in this industry as a whole.
Yeah. Awesome. I'd love to actually kind of maybe look into that a little bit more before we talk
Absolutely,
about like
yeah.
your approach in the workshops.
Mm-hmm.
For me as well, living in an area or just on the outskirts of an area that is incredibly popular for destination weddings, for elopements, which is the Dolomites,
Oh yeah.
and seeing like how that's changing, how it's changing the area. It's not just elopements, it's the tourism industry in general.
Yeah.
Seeing people coming in from all over the world who want to shoot here, and the effects that's having on the locations themselves, the local communities that live in the areas, the nature. So talk to me a little bit about that in terms of, especially your area, so in Northern Ireland, what trends you're seeing, maybe the positives and the negatives around that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have seen a huge growth very, very quickly. I feel like in the last 3 to 4 years, probably even less post-COVID, it has just went absolutely crazy. What started off as maybe, there was myself and maybe two, three other photographers would have shot elopements here. Now we have daily photographers, planners, traveling from all over the world to shoot elopements here. The positives of that are we absolutely love it. Business is absolutely surging. It's why I opened my planning business, because I've seen the demand for it. It's wonderful, and it's wonderful to see people coming. And there's nothing I love more than seeing the place that I see every day and can sometimes very easily take for granted through fresh eyes. I just think, that is wonderful to see. It's amazing that people want to come here. It's great for local business. It's great for the local economy. However, there is the flip side of overpopulation, of over tourism here in Portrush, where I live. I mean, we in tourism in general, we have seen a huge surge here, and it's made our house prices rise to the point where locals like me, who has rented all my life, I'm now having to buy, not in the town I grew up in, not in the town my husband grew up in. We're having to move 15 minutes away to be able to buy our first house. That's the real life cost of these things, where locals are priced out of the area. And that then transfers into business, where if someone wants to come and shoot here for portfolio and is shooting for free, I'm seeing that more and more and more, where I get approached very regularly by couples who want to pick my brain about locations or want to pick my brain about vendors, but they're flying over a photographer because that photographer's doing it for free. Mm-hmm. That is really disheartening. I have no issue if someone is being paid to be here and it is a competitive market, but I'm not going to give you my knowledge for free. So again, that was another reason why I set up the planning business, because I was like, well, if you want that knowledge and expertise, well, then you're going to put some money into the local economy to do that. And that is a pitfall of this. It's a pitfall in that there's locations I will never ever share online, because the locations that are shared, we have about 3 or 4 main ones. Mm-hmm. Now Dunluce Castle, the Dark Hedges, Giant's Causeway are the 3 main ones that I can happily talk about, because they're everywhere, and if you search online, they're there. Dunluce Castle, again, it's run by a local farmer. It's wonderful to see him so busy. He does not actually need he owns that much land and is that successful in his farming business. He does not need to be letting couples get married on that field, but he does it because he loves to see people come here to get married. The concern about that is he's now so busy. Is one day going to get too much for him and he's just going to say no and it's going to stop? Mm-hmm. Because it's so busy. He's had to bring in people to try and help him manage it, because what started off as maybe 20 is now over 300 a year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There's 3 a day on some days. I'm booking into 2026 to try and get a slot in that field. Wow. So, then it becomes like a conveyor belt. Mm-hmm. It becomes very like Las Vegas, and you're rocking up to, get married by Elvis, and you're meeting somebody on the way out. It happens. It's happening where I'm bringing couples to locations and we're standing in a queue to wait to get a spot. And that just, to me, it takes away what an elopement is, and it takes away what that special moment of getting married should all be about. You should feel that intimacy. That's what an elopement is. It's about being intimate and private, and we're just really struggling now. And it's hard because I get on calls with couples and I'm like, I have some lesser known locations that are not, you're not going to find them on Pinterest. They're equally as beautiful and you're not going to be queuing. And I'm like, no, but we've seen this on Pinterest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're like, yes, I know you have, but trust me, you do not want, you're going to be standing in a queue with 3 other brides.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's about an education side of me trying to educate these couples and making sure we get the right fit. So that's the downside. The downside is also safety. At Dunluce Castle, it's a perfect example of this, where there was, along the coastline, a lot of these cliff edges, there's grass that grows over the edge. As a local, I know that grass is extremely long, but there's nothing underneath it. So you don't take them too close to the edge. We had a local couple, or an international photographer, take a couple really close to that edge. If the couple had taken half a step back or there'd been a gust of wind, they were off that cliff edge. They posted that photo. That photo went viral. The local council were on at were straight on to the farmer at Dunluce Castle, and he had to put up really ugly fences. So that's the downside. When people come and don't respect the land, don't get educated on it, they don't be safe. Ultimately, if they're not acting in a safe way, we have a government here that are waiting to just crack down. It's the same at Giant's Causeway. My husband works on the lifeboats, and that's a coastal area with tides that can come in, rogue waves can come in, and I've been down there and I've seen photographers have couples write down that if one rogue wave, which has happened, my husband has been out on calls where people have got caught by a rogue wave, and you're putting people's lives at risk. And this is happening more and more. And those photos go online, people get those ideas, and it just breeds an unsafe industry. And that's what's going to stop our industry continuing, because it just takes one thing to go wrong and it ruins it for everyone. And that's my genuine concern as someone that wants to see people shooting here. But you sound like the big bad wolf, when you raise these things of like, oh, just let people have fun.
Yeah.
It's all very well until it doesn't end well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel I relate with a lot of the frustrations there, because I see it happening here, and I think that's the wonderful thing about our photographer community as well, is that we're such an international community. I have friends who live on the Isle of Skye. I have friends who live in Tuscany. I have friends who live in Iceland, and it's, for me, it's interesting, but it's not surprising that I hear these same concerns coming up over and over again. So I guess that really leads really nicely into why you started doing the workshops. And I guess we'll start with why you started doing them, and then we'll talk maybe a little bit about your approach to it.
Yeah, so I started workshops really early in my career, like to the point that people were going, who is she? Who does she think she is, offering education? She's been in this game 2 minutes. But I very quickly, like I said, noticed a few things when I was going to workshops or hearing talks, and I have invested heavily in education when I started, and it was the best thing I ever did, because it was the first time I'd ever felt like I belonged anywhere in my entire life. I feel like that's the best thing about our photography community, is that we're a lot of us are very like-minded. We're very, similar. And as someone who grew up not feeling like they belonged, the second I went to my first workshop and I was in a room with other people who just got it and got me and got what I loved, it was like the most amazing thing in the world. So I went to a lot of different things, but what I was noticing was that there was a lot of recurring themes that was about selling a model for success, a model for getting bookings and high-end clients and earning as much money as possible and all of these things. But again, I started noticing the gaps of, well, there wasn't the diversity, there wasn't the same sort of values-based approach, I would say. And very quickly, I became very disheartened. Within my first year and a half in this industry, I wanted to quit, because I followed someone else's model and it worked and I got loads of amazing bookings, but I hated every minute because I wasn't being me. I wasn't being true to myself. And so that really made me aware that there was this gap. There was this gap here that no one was kind of filling, in terms of especially for women in the industry, I would say, especially when I was starting, you're talking 8 years ago, it was mostly male speakers. Now, there was a few really incredible female speakers who I absolutely loved, and Nadia Melly changed the game for me, that woman. And she really inspired me, and she really inspired me to keep going in the industry. Um, and again, at that point too, elopements were starting to happen here, but they weren't really. So I wanted to put out all I wanted to do with if anything I did was just put out something that filled the gap. That I was like, I could moan about this education that's out there, or I can put out something to counter it. And you can't complain if you're not going to do something about it. So that was why I started Capture Love. And it was really about me living here on the North Coast. And I was like, this would be an amazing place to shoot for anyone. Let's get like-minded people together. And the first one was due to happen just as COVID happened. So that all fell away. But for me, Capture Love, then I was like, no, we're not going to let this go. And the first one sold out in 3 hours. It was amazing. It really, really did. But it was more locals. And then after COVID, I started getting more international people wanting to come. And I'm not going to lie, I was quite conflicted at one point because I was going, am I feeding the problem here by advertising a style shoot on this coastline and building portfolio to advertise for more people to be traveling? It really sat quite in a grey area for me. And the main reason that I decided to keep going with Capture Love and to market it to an international audience was, if people are going to come here, and they are going to come, I really want them to come and learn from a local, and I want them to work with local vendors, and I want them to work with a local team and see how it actually works to shoot here. Not how you think it should work, how it actually works, who these farmers are, how it operates in terms of the safety, so that I can, teach these things about, this is a safe area, this isn't, here's the way the tides work, here's what isn't. And again, I see workshops coming in, and we now are, again, it's on a surge here where workshops are coming here, being planned and hosted by international photographers. And that, you see it all the time, I see it all the time, all across the world. I've been tempted to go to many myself over the years, but that's not teaching about the local perspective of shooting an elopement here. That's coming in and creating something absolutely stunning and beautiful, but is it necessarily realistic? And for me, that's what Capture Love is. Capture Love is a real workshop where you learn about how elopement works here in real terms, from the shoot day being a real timeline to working with a real elopement team that do this week in, week out. That for me is what it is. It's like the anti-lux workshop is what I've realized it is. It's not about like booking this luxury couple. It's about booking your real everyday couples that are wanting to elope here all the time and seeing what it's really like, So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, sorry, but I'm so passionate about it. I really am. And it is, all of our attendees up to this point have all been identifying as female. I have always said I would never shut the door on anyone based on their gender. However, what I would say is that all the speakers and all my team, apart from Sean the farmer who runs Dunluce, and the celebrant John, who is just the nicest man, everyone and a couple of our models, but everyone is identifying as female. And that has really become a natural thing that has just happened. It was never necessarily intentional, but I'm very passionate about women in our industry. I'm very passionate about our unique set of needs. I'm very passionate about how we run businesses. I believe there is a variation, and there are unique strengths to being a woman in this industry, and there are unique challenges to being a woman in this industry. And I just love the fact that for the time when we're here and everyone's together, because it is a retreat, it is we stay, what everyone always says is it's lovely to just feel safe. It's a really safe space for a few days, and it's not to say that men make it unsafe. I'm not saying that at all, but unless you're a woman in this industry. Only, you'll know what I mean when I say that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess if we kind of take the theme of diversity within that then, and because you said that especially in Northern Ireland that's quite a big theme,
Yeah.
sometimes a challenge. How
Yeah.
does that influence how you run workshops in terms of looking for models and creating those safe spaces as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that was one thing I noticed, especially with an elopement, because we do have a very bad press here in Northern Ireland, understandably, can I say? And within our industry, there is a huge section of our industry that will not photograph any LGBTQ couple plus couple. It's an unspoken thing, I think, but we're all very much aware of it. Also, just our general politics in general means that I think if any couple were to be looking for elopements, they're not seeing a huge amount of, couples that they can identify with in portfolios here. So for me, I always look for every workshop we've had yet. I know the bigger one, the last, we're in Capture Love 4. The first one we only had one model couple because it was in COVID. But the last three we've always had LGBTQ plus couples. And we go for real couples, is what I would say as well. So they've all been real couples, not like professional models. I try to do that where everyone gets paid, but they're not professional model couples that I work with on our shoots, because again, I don't think that teaches anyone as much as what working with a real couple, that you need to work to make feel comfortable. So all of our couples obviously trust me in a way to trust me to do this because they know it's putting themselves out there. And then we really prioritize making them feel safe, seen, and comfortable during the shoot. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is I want our workshops to be representative as much as possible. And because of the lack of diversity in portfolios here in Northern Ireland, that was one of my biggest things, especially with elopements. Especially with elopements. We don't get very many. We really don't. And I can understand why. And I really want to change that. And I think doing that through Capture Love really helps. It's allowed as well all of our attendees to have that relationships with couples and be able to put that out there. I also check that every vendor that I work with is aligned in my values. So right down to, I contacted the dressmaker that we bought the dress from to make sure, because there was something on Instagram and I wasn't seeing a lot in their portfolio, and I just reached out and I just want to check that we're aligned in our values here. So I always like to check that and make sure that our values are aligned with everyone I work with. That goes right across my businesses, I have to say, especially my planning business. It's a core value. Before anyone signs up to work with me, they have to sign up to my values. But yeah, it's very, very important. And I do think I don't, it's a very fine line. I think so often people can do that in a tokenistic way. And that's something I really don't want to be ever doing. So by making sure that that's really clear from the get-go, and yeah, just creating that safe space for people to be themselves right across in every way. I'm recently diagnosed autistic, and we've had quite a few neurodivergent people come to the workshops, and it's why the workshop, everyone gets their own room, because I knew I need space.
Yeah.
I need space as a neurodivergent, or as an autistic person. I need space to go away, and so anyone with any sort of right across the board, we make sure that the space is aligned, whether it's from being vegan to making sure the food's vegan to having your own space, to people just know that I've got them. We've got you. This is your time, and I think that's so important.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I love it. Okay, so let's flip this over to then the photographers that attend. Do you have, because we touched at the beginning, like some of the issues of people coming to the area who don't really understand it, people coming from all over the world. Do you talk, and do you have any kind of guidelines? So this was something when I ran workshops, which yeah, similar to you, I had a lot of conflicts about doing them, bringing
Yeah.
people to an area that maybe didn't need more people. And I've always had very mixed feelings about styled shoots, and also then how those images are then used by photographers. For
Mm-hmm.
me, you know, I get personally kind of quite annoyed when I see people attend a styled shoot and then market for that location with full gusto, as if spending 3 days there makes them a expert. So,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
always talked very openly about that. So when I did run workshops, I actually kind of set guidelines and said, you can absolutely use these images. However, for me, for the way that I want to offer this styled shoot, these are the parameters in which you can use the images.
Mm.
Do you do anything like that with yours? Do you have any conversations around that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's right from the get-go. It's very clear that I hate nothing more than seeing people use images without making it clear, number one, that it's a workshop. That grinds my gears like you wouldn't believe. And if I see an attendee using something without a tag, I will message them after the workshop and say, you need to add the tags there, and make it very clear. And we really talk about this. The last few years, I've had Becky from Bell Art Photography and Joe from Joe Greenfield, so both who are in Isle of Skye and the Lakes. And between the three of us, we talk about how these are issues across these three main areas where elopements are happening. So a lot of what we're talking about during the day, and hearing it from us in a way that's, it's not a here's how you should do this, like here's my problem. It's really like, guys, this is the problems we face. And most times I find that when people actually take a minute to sit back and think about this in the longer term, most people get it. I don't think anybody ever goes out to, be detrimental to a location. And so I think by having the time in there where we just talk about it honestly, and especially on the style shoot day, that is why I do it in a really realistic format. So before anybody lifts their cameras that day, we will have a very long conversation about safety, about how these images can be used, about geotags, about all of those things. And whilst we're really talking about, I want to give people the tools that if they want to book or grow their business and do certain things, here's how we give them those tools and those skills. But we talk about the ethics of it, and we talk in depth about, I think because Capture Love is very much about having a values-based business,
Mm-hmm.
I really like to get people to make that decision for themselves and go, do you want to be that, like, who are you as a person? Do you want to be that person? Or, and then, do you know what? And if they're not that person, they're going to do it no matter what I say. But I always find anyone that's attending Capture Love, they're very, very understanding. And actually, I've had quite a few, come to Capture Love, be really happy they've shot there, and then are not keen to go back or like come back. Like, they're not in any rush to book another one because they've come, they've got to shoot, they've got that out of their system, they've got to achieve what they wanted to achieve with beautiful images. But maybe they've realized actually this isn't all as glamorous as I thought it was going to be. Or because I think too, there's that perception, isn't there? Like, oh, we'll go travel the world and it's going to be so glam and it's going to be, and then you see the reality a bit of it and you go, oh, this isn't as glam as I thought it was.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like the style shoots, we talked a little bit about the models. So for me, I'm getting that you want things to be less styled shoot, more like let's make this more realistic so that you understand what an actual elopement day would be like if you shot here. Tell me like how you approach that in terms of like planning the shoot part of the workshop.
Yeah, so I want everyone to get as much out of it as possible. So we have two couples, and also it's quite a small group. So the most we'll ever have in any group is like 8 people. So normally we have two photographers leading each group, but everyone gets to shoot themselves. So I plan it like I would at any other wedding timeline, in that it is tight for time. It is very, very, very tight for time. And we normally host Capture Love in either March or November, so we don't have an awful lot of light. So we'll plan the timeline based around sunset, and at each location you get like 40 minutes with each couple. and then we swap, and it has to be bang on time. There's literally like a stopwatch. I'm going, okay, all right, change over. If you haven't got it, you haven't got it. And we really do focus on also if the couples are freezing cold or it's torrential rain, we go by them. Like we meet the couple's needs. I'm not putting a couple out there to get pneumonia for you to get a shot. Like we will maximize as much possible. My couples are always up for doing, whatever, and they go to the ends of the earth. But it's things like making sure that the couple have a hot water bottle or a dry robe. And I'm encouraging like the attendees to be checking in on the couples and building that relationship themselves. And it does become very much like a little family. So it's realistic because I know for me, if I'm shooting an elopement, I could shoot out here all day and I would never get bored, but that's not real. So one year we did try to add a bit more styling into it with flowers and stuff, and it was just an epic fail because that's not what couples are coming here. They don't want to come here for flowers. They want to come here for the landscapes, and they want to come here to go on an adventure. So it just didn't feel real to me and realistic. Yes, things like a little cake or a little picnic is one thing, but the most of it is really about getting to multiple locations within a short time frame, because that is the joy of Northern Ireland. There's no hiking involved mostly in our locations. It's a plus and it's a pro and a con, but it is what's drawing people here because they could get 4 locations in 4 hours very easily. So that's what we do. We do 4 locations, maybe slightly more than 4 hours, but it's about time, it's about experience, and it's about creating realistic content and also letting each attendee work with the couple, because I don't want someone shooting, that's my work you're getting, then you're not getting yours. So we take it in turns, and I'll maybe talk a bit about location and landscapes and the light and working with the light and working with composition, and then I step back and let them all do until I have to ring the bell and be like, right, change over.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. So I guess I have 2 kind of final questions around like running workshops.
Yeah.
So the first one is advice you would give photographers who are considering, perhaps they live somewhere like you or I do where it's popular for elopements, maybe they don't. So advice for photographers who are considering maybe running a workshop.
I would say be prepared for how hard it is, because that's one thing I would say. There is no profit in this. And that is, if you get into it for wanting to make money or wanting to like even grow your name or whatever the reason might be, if it's not a reason that is underpinned by some bigger picture, you're just going to burn out. Because trust me when I say every single one I went, nope, never again. It is super stressful. It's super hard to sell. It's super hard to like get your message out there, because I do feel like we're competing with you're competing with the quick and easy, of let's have some beautiful images. And I do think there's this trend at the minute, because I think of the economy we're in, where people are needing to put it up their prices, and there's like luxury sort of thing. So it's very easy to just go on portfolio alone and give people what they want, and I do think that is a lot of people want just really pretty images for their portfolio. But what I would say is, what is the long-term benefit of that for anybody involved? If you're starting a workshop, I really think you need to be thinking, what is someone going to get out of this in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And what's the industry going to get out of it? Because I think creating portfolio that people can't recreate is just going to lead to a burnout. And that's what happened to me. I got great images and I got great insight into booking higher end, high pricing luxury clients, and I hated every minute because it wasn't aligned with me. So be true. You need to be really clear on who you are and what you stand for and what you do in business before you start offering anything to anyone. And think about the bigger picture, and also be prepared to have a very thick skin because you'll never do right by everybody. I have had other local photographers think that I'm not doing the right thing, and they're not always going to get my intention. But on the flip side, I know my intention. I know that there's a longer term goal here. And I think that's the thing with workshops is, what is the bigger picture? Be very clear on that before you start, because if you aren't, you're just going to get blown over. And also, don't try to copy everybody else. I see this happening way too often, where people are like, "Oh, that looks really easy," and then they realize, no, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's not as easy as it looks. Far from it.
Awesome. Cool. And I guess, I mean, that just leads then to the final question that I'd written down, which was kind of the flip side of that. So, not photographers looking to run a workshop, but photographers looking to attend a workshop. Because, yeah, people do it for many different reasons. I know for me, it was always about that community, like you said. It was some of my closest friends in the industry, even though we live on different continents sometimes, are from people I met at workshops, and we stayed in touch. But everyone has their different motivations. But especially in terms of like a sustainability perspective, because after all, that is kind of, that's the focus of Photographers for People and Planet. I know it's a big focus for you. Tips, advice for photographers who are thinking, oh, do you know what, maybe I'm going to do a workshop, a portfolio build, whatever it might be. I want to go to some kind of event this year. Tips for finding one that perhaps is supporting sustainability or that aligns with them. What would you say?
Yeah. I'm exactly the same. My best friend in the whole world. My life changed when I started going to photography workshops. I mean, when I started, before that, I was completely socially anxious, really in the depths of depression, and had no clue about who I was. So I owe a lot to photography workshops, and I genuinely believe we are so lucky as an industry that we have these spaces. I don't believe there's many industries like it, in terms of the support that you get from them. I think it's do your research. Really get into the nitty gritty of who is it you are working with, who is it you are signing up to go and hear from. So often, it's one of my biggest bugbears is, but it's also very hard as someone who is trying to market a workshop, because what happens is you are competing with figures like how to turn a 6-figure business and how to grow and in an economy that we're in, or how to book more clients, or how to do this. And I think what's really important is to take a step back and think about who you are as a person, and does the person that you're going to be investing in, because when you book a workshop with someone, no matter who it is, whether it's a company, whether a collective of photographers, an individual, a speaker, whatever, what is it about them that draws you to them? Is it their work? Because their photos are going to tell you so much, but they're not going to teach you how to shoot you're never going to walk away shooting. I'm never going to walk away shooting like Becky shoots, but I will get a little bit of Becky when I listen to her. But it's more about the values, and I do believe that if there is a local option, I do think it, in terms of sustainability, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I do think a local option is leaving money in the local economy. What I have seen and I'm seeing is, I know of workshops that are coming in and they're not using one local vendor. Even if they're using local vendors when they come, but flying in all international vendors and flying in all international speakers, if there's not one local involved in the workshop, in the space, whether it's a local planner, a local florist, a local model, whatever it is, that to me would be a red flag, because I don't think that none of that is staying in the local economy. There's no local knowledge, and so you're never going to walk away with any sort of sustainable information to help you shoot there ethically, in my opinion. So yeah, it doesn't have to be run by a local. I mean, I'm obviously biased in that, but I've seen workshops here locally that they haven't used one local person, not one, when they've come here. And that breaks my heart, because we have incredible talent. We have incredible florists, incredible makeup artists, hairdressers, stylists. They're even flying in models. And we have plenty here that you could work with. So those to me would be red flags. And I think they're just questions that you could ask yourself is could we, or even raise it with those organisers and ask those questions, because it's something that they're just maybe not aware of. And I think that's the key to this, is let's raise awareness for the impact in this long term. Let's raise awareness on what we can do to make sure this industry is sustainable for everybody, so that people can come visit and can come shoot here. But if we don't protect this, I genuinely worry, hand on heart, that we're not going to have an industry here in 10 years' time. That is genuinely my worry. So yeah, as an attendee, that is just something that you really could, that simple thing of asking that question to that workshop organizer could make the biggest difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that links back to what you said at the very start, which is, I think sometimes the things that people don't think is when you don't work with locals, it's like, well, why does the florist need to be local? They don't need to know the area. Why does the makeup artist? But it's about that money staying within that local community, because as places become more popular, destination weddings, elopements have a very strong link with tourism in general.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this everywhere where tourism is growing, that people who have lived in places their whole lives have to consider moving away because they simply can't compete with people coming in and doing it for free, because their house prices are going through the roof. And it's like, no, I can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's very easy for people to think, yeah, but I'm just one photographer. I'm going to go in, I'm booking a hotel, so I'm putting some money in the economy. But kind of just thinking, if that was your backyard, how would you, actually,
Okay.
it's not just about making money, it's about actually having to move your whole life sometimes.
Yeah.
And just, it is that thing, isn't it? Going back to values and going, if it was the flip side, if this was where I live, how would I feel? Um,
And
and
even
yeah.
even from a practical view, can I, like, this is something, and I don't know the ins and outs. I haven't done a huge amount of research, but what worries me is when you come in, a lot of people are actually doing these things without the right visas or permits or insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not here with the right visa or permit to be running something here and working here, that means your insurance isn't valid. So if something happened to an attendee on that premises or on your workshop, they're not insured.
Yeah.
It's actually like the nuts and bolts of all of this, that people, like, it's not an issue until it is an issue. And that's the thing. And it's not spoken about because, oh, you're a Debbie Downer and you just don't want to, you want to bring it down. It's not that. It takes one incident like that to get all workshops banned in
Mm-hmm.
this area. We have the farmer that at Dunluce, like I said, had to put up fences. He is really a bit of a face off. The government want to repossess, compulsory purchase his land because they want to turn it into a car park. So they're watching him like a hawk, waiting for someone to trip and fall, or waiting for somebody to not be insured, or not have the right permit, or not have a health and safety assessment. If you're not working with a local person, then those vendors aren't insured to be working here.
Yeah.
So if something happens, there's the ethics to it, but there's also the practicalities to it and safety. And I just feel like that is really easily glossed over until it's not. And it's about the local economy. Like I said, we are moving 15 minutes away from the town. My husband was born in this town. He's a member of the local lifeboat. He volunteers and goes out on the boats. He has to leave that because we have to move 15 minutes away, because the same house in this town is £100,000 more expensive. You're not talking like 10 or 20 even. It's £100,000 more expensive to live in this town because of the last 2 years in over tourism. We're having local businesses shut because we're losing domestic tourists, and it's a changing market. And again, there is an element that we all just have to change and pivot with that. And I do think that is an element of any tourism, and we need education, and we need a growing infrastructure. And as locals, as a local photographer, I'm the one campaigning to do that. I'm working with the National Trust to get access and permits for Giant's Causeway so that it's going to be sustainable. I'm working with local politicians to try and create some sort of infrastructure for all tourism businesses. I'm working with the local council and supporting other local businesses to get better at SEO and TikTok to help them, harness this. I'm working with local businesses for couples when they're here, that it's not just they're booking me as their photographer. They're going to a restaurant, they're going to paddle boarding, they're going on a boat, they're going and using other local businesses. All things that I can do because I'm local.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger picture. It really is. And I just love where, and any of us that are saying any of this stuff, it's not because we don't want people to come. We do. We really do. I love nothing more than it. And I love when I see people coming, and it's my greatest honor to show the place I call home and to have people photograph it and walk away with pictures to show other people around the world. It's amazing. It's great to see people finally recognizing our wee country.
Yeah.
I just want it to stay like that. It just scares me that it's going to go the way Iceland has, what you're facing, and it really is. That would just make me so sad for my kids. It would make me so sad for my kids.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess tell us just before we wrap up, because I forgot to ask you, tell me, when is the
Oh,
next workshop that you have?
the next workshop is the 11th of November 2024, so this year. It's Capture Love 5, and we have it's myself, Becky from Bell Art Photography, and Joe Greenfield. So you get the trifecta from across the UK, I'm calling us. All three of us are elopement specialists, and all three of us are going to be talking about different elements of business, about having a sustainable business, a business that can manage to ride the waves. All three of us are sitting in a time when I know and understand that a lot of photographers are struggling. We're sitting with full diaries. We're sitting having businesses that allow us to spend time with our families, that allow us to be our best selves. We're all three of us have aligned in our values of, trying to balance rest and work and getting out of the hustle culture that our industry can draw you into, whilst also having a profitable business. And it's okay to talk about profits, and it's okay about making money, and it's okay because those things allow you to do more good in the world. And it's so we're talking more about that, and we're talking about helping those that come to create a sustainable business for them and defining what that is for you. So it's the 11th to the 14th. There are only 8 spaces left, but we would love, love, love to have you have anyone come. Like I said, it has always been those identifying as female has been in attendance, but that is not to say we can't have a conversation. So any information you need, just reach out. I'm always at the end of an email.
Awesome. And I will say one of my coaching clients has attended one of your Capture Love workshops, and they loved it.
Oh,
So
yes, that's right.
I can't personally endorse or recommend, although I fully endorse everything you stand for. I think what you're doing is wonderful. But yeah, I've had amazing feedback as well
Oh,
from
thank you.
people that I know in the industry, that it's a fabulous, fabulous workshop to go to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That really means so much.
And of course, I will put the link in the show notes in the description of this, so that if people are interested in learning more, that they can find out more and get in touch with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's hard. It's hard putting yourself out there with stuff like this, but it really does. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. It really is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. It's been really amazing to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.